You're listening to Twins Takes, the Minnesota Twins podcast. And welcome to episode 3 of Twins Takes. I'm Twins Central, joined by Falvey's Mattress and Twins Insider tonight. Tonight we'll be breaking down the 2026 lineup. How are you, Falvey's Mattress and Twins Insider?
Doing well today. We had a few cuts with the spring training, so it'll be good to get into that. And just currently watching the World Baseball Classic.
I'm a little bit under the weather, but they're going to have a flu game here. How are you, Twin Central 1?
I'm doing good. Even better that Buxton's back in the lineup, as we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's good to see. Hopefully, we're recording this about the third inning of the WBC, so he's 0 for 2 so far, but hopefully he gets some hits on the board.
Well, can we get into some news?
Breaking news.
Well, I got some bad news for you.
Extra.
Good news, everyone.
It's time for the news.
As mentioned just a moment ago, Buxton was hit by a pitch over the weekend and had to exit the ball game, but he is back in the lineup tonight against Mexico, hitting 8th and playing center field. So that is both negative, but much more positive that he's back in the lineup. He was out versus Great Britain. I believe it was on Saturday. So there was a little worry on Twitter, but now he's back. So not anything too notable, thankfully.
We've, for a change for this podcast, we've got some good news. Last Friday against Atlanta, Bailey Ober finally made his first start. Is much anticipated. And his velo was pretty solid for a first start. He maxed out at 91. The fastball averaged 89.9, which I think it was down. It was like 87 at the end of last year. So he bounced back pretty strong. That was very good to see, very encouraging for any hope for this team.
So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. You're looking at it from the positive side, which is interesting. I saw a tweet from Aaron Gleeman who broke down his Ober's velos throughout the last few spring trainings. And unlike most starters, Ober's velo has actually been up in spring training compared to the regular season. The thought is just with less innings pitched each outing that he fired up a little more in shorter stints. This time it was actually down compared to last year. Like you said, he averaged, or it was actually right in line with last year, down 0.4%. So right where do you want to see, but I think fans are hoping that it gets back to that 92, 93, 94 area that we saw in 2024.
I think, again, I think it was the first start. I think if he has another start and he doesn't go up, I think that's a little concerning. But because I think we'll transition to Zebby in a minute, but the fact that his velo went down, 4 starts in, that's more concerning than that first start. You kind of have to contextualize it with whatever comes after.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough to take a big view at it, but it is worth noting that he has been pitching on the backfields for a few weeks, so it's not like he got a late start to spring training. It's just the first time we publicly saw him, and the velo is about where I think I expected it. Falvey's Mattress, do you have any thoughts on Ober's first outing of spring?
I think we'll probably see him sitting around that low 90s most of the year. I'm hoping that he gets one pitch at 93.0 miles an hour, so Twins Insider couldn't quit with his gimmick, but I think I'm pretty happy with his first outing being where it's at. I know he did sit on the backfields for a while, but it's better than having him sit 88, 89 miles an hour like we saw so much at the end of last year. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, speaking of velo, we did have a Zebby Matthews start today that did not go particularly well. He was sitting about 1.5 miles slower with his fastball today, and he got knocked around pretty good to the tune of 6 earned runs. Should be noted that he did not finish the first inning, and a reliever came in and allowed a few of the inherited runners to score, so that stat line may be a little skewed. And he did have a bit of a better second inning, but yeah, still not a great start from Zebby today. Do you guys have thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, so I'll jump here in real quick. Like you said, the reliever did come in and allow a few of those runs, so the line perhaps looks a little worse than it should. And the defense, there was a ball hit to center field that I think if Buxton was out there probably would have caught and would have limited the damage. But again, it's spring training. The more discouraging thing, like you said, all the pitches were down, whether it was fastball, slider, cutter, changeup, everything was down. And it was down fairly significantly. The first inning, he was getting no whiffs at all. I think he didn't get a whiff on his fastball until the 4th inning. he got 15 swings, only 3 whiffs. That's not going to play for Zebby.
I will say, like Central said, he did actually go 4 innings. I think he threw about 70 pitches today. And in the last inning, his velo actually was the highest it had been. So I think right in the first inning, a lot of people were talking like significant injury. I don't think that's the case. You never know with this team, but it could have just been a curious case of a bad day. That's what you have to hope for, at least.
Yeah, like you said, if there was an injury worry that the staff was afraid of at all, there's no way they would have pushed him to 69 pitches, which is what he ended up throwing in 3 and a third inning, but over 4 innings. So I think you just have to hope that it was a mechanical thing, or maybe he just wasn't feeling 100%. And also there were some cuts today. Falvey's Mattress, you want to take us through those?
Yeah, so we had some fun names get sent down. I think it's about time with AAA games starting here up soon. But Gabby Gonzalez, John Klein, Andrew Morris, Connor Prelip, Marco Rea, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Kendry Rojas down to AAA. We've got Henry Menendez to AA Wichita, and Walker Jenkins will be reassigned to the minor league camp, or was reassigned to the minor league camp on March 4th. And that was probably mostly due to his injury at the time.
Yeah, I think the Jenkins one is almost guaranteed to the injury. We're not going to see him again. So there wasn't anything. And even if he was still healthy, he probably was about due to be sent out then. But I think actually out of this group, the ones that are going to grab the headlines is Emmanuel Rodriguez. He put together a really nice spring. And then Gabriel Gonzalez, who homered today before being sent down, hit almost 500 over the spring. I'm not too surprised about either of those. Gonzalez especially didn't have any chance at making the roster. And then Emma Rodriguez, I thought, needed multiple injuries to guys in front of him to get hurt. And obviously we don't want to see that happen. The name that actually stood out to me was John Klein. He's a starter that they're transitioning to the bullpen, and he's had a solid spring so far. I thought they would maybe want to give him a longer look just with the state of this bullpen. Insider, which of these names stood out to you?
Klein definitely stood out. I know a lot of fans are probably not familiar with him, but he's kind of on that Travis Adams, Pearson Ole, like 60 pitches transitioning to a reliever at the MLB level. He's a big guy. He's got a hard fastball. I think he's like 6'7" or 6'8". So he's definitely a name that we're going to see again. But, I mean, I did definitely – Marco Raya's early spring training, a lot of people, including myself, believed that he was going to be like a high-leverage reliever. Then he kind of progressed back to form, started walking people, kind of started melting down. So I understand. Like, none of these guys I actually thought would make the team, but those names stood out early in camp as guys who were started strong, kind of faded.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, there were encouraging performances out of some of them. Andrew Morris had a rough first outing and then rebounded really well. Prelip was just okay. Raya, like you said, had a really good first outing and then really faltered, looked really bad over the last few outings. Kendry Rojas, kind of similar to Morris, got off to a good start and then really struggled. What are your expectations for him this year?
Rojas, you mean?
Yeah.
I think the stuff is definitely there. He definitely needs to kind of marinate in AAA for a while. I think him and Prelip, in my mind, have kind of been next to each other. Rojas has looked better in camp to me. I know their ERAs are both pretty bad, but Rojas has looked more in command. He's looked more in control. Prelip has looked like a guy who really hasn't pitched at all in the last several years. Maybe Mattress has a different take, but
No, I'm kind of with you on that. I think Rojas will probably sit most, if not all, of the year in AAA and just kind of work on his stuff. I think from an organizational standpoint, I would assume that Prelip would be getting the call before Rojas does at this point. But yeah, I mean, their stuff seems pretty similar. They're kind of on the same totem pole for me as well. The one thing I would have kind of liked to see, I know it's probably not likely that it would have happened and it didn't happen, but I went to Mindsy and Erod just stay with the big league club a couple more games with Buxton currently at the WBC, just give him some more opportunities to face better big league pitching in center field at the time. But I get why he's going down, so he can get some more time down there.
Yeah, and we should note that just because these guys were reassigned to AAA, it doesn't mean that they're not allowed to come over and play in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning of spring training games. They can still do that if the Twins want to, and it's almost a guarantee that we will see these guys. throughout the rest of spring over the next few weeks. In other news, Joe Ryan makes his first outing tomorrow against the Rays. I do not believe it's televised, but much like Ober, we'll get that StatCast velo and all the Stuff Plus models. What are you guys looking for out of Ryan in his first start?
Staying healthy, not getting scratched before the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty worried that he's not going to be ready to go for opening day. I mean, I was talking with Twin Central One before we started this podcast. We're thinking if he's ready to go opening day, he might be sitting around that 60, 70, 75 pitch count. So for me, it's just let's get him built up as efficiently as we can at this point, and hopefully he can be ready to go on opening day for us.
I mean, even if he only goes like 5 innings, we have a lockdown bullpen. So if he hands us a lead, we will shut that thing down anyway. Don't worry.
Right, I'll have whatever you're having tonight, Insider.
I'm having NyQuil. So if you want that, go to Walgreens and buy some.
And to wrap up the Twins news, Luke Keeschel, who had primarily been only playing second base through the first third of spring training, has played left field twice in the last week. Do you guys think that's notable, or are they just getting him reps there?
I think it's definitely. Before he hurt his had the arm surgery, that was part of his repertoire, is that he was a corner outfielder, maybe even center in a pinch, and second base. So, you talk about kind of that outfield logjam. If he mixes in, if you want to mix in his bat, I don't really care about where he plays if he can play there.
Yeah, I mean, he's been having a really good spring in the batter's box. So if we can find him in a position, it's I think outfield would suit him well, just given the way he plays the game. And I think it's notable that he can throw now. This is a testament to him being able to throw after having that Tommy John surgery. So I think it'd be good to get him some reps out there, and hopefully, we'll see him at Target Field here and roaming the outfield soon with Buxton.
Yeah, like Mattress said, it is a sign that they think that his arm is healthy, which it should be at this point. The surgery's been a year and a half in the rearview mirror. I think it's unlikely that he plays too much left field, just because having a good second baseman is more valuable than having a good left fielder. But if he's bad at second base, which I think there's a decent chance that he is, it is good to have left field as a fallback option. I think it's more likely he plays in the outfield if the Twins are facing a lefty, because you have Wallner, you have Larnach there that you want to shield against left-handed pitchers.
I completely agree about, at most, probably a platoon usage. And that actually brings up an interesting conversation that we can get into about how would you start to construct this lineup and this roster now that spring training is almost halfway over.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that after the break. And welcome back to Twins Takes. I'm Twin Central, still with Falvey's Mattress and Twins Insider. Now we're going to take a look at what we think Jeremy Zola company will do with the hitting side of the 26-man roster when the Twins head to Baltimore in a few weeks. It's crazy that opening day is just 14, maybe 16 days away now. It's getting me excited, even though the Twins are going to be pretty bad. So starting at catcher, we have Ryan Jeffers, who's obviously going to be on the roster, and then Victor Caratini, who again is obviously going to be on the roster. They gave him $14 million over 2 years this offseason. That does mean Alex Jackson isn't going to be on this roster. I think they'll trade him if they can convince anybody to give him some cash or maybe a Dominican Summer League player. But those are the two catchers we see them rolling north with.
And kicking it to the infield, so Josh Bell is obviously first base and DH. He's a lock. Luke Keeschel is a lock, second base. Brooks Lee, shortstop, is a lock. Royce Lewis, third base, is a lock. Clemens is kind of your utility lock, also a lot of first base. And then there's some debate about that final spot, but we think it's going to be Ryan Kreidler. He's a good defensive shortstop, and he's right-handed.
And then what we think will be manning the outfield is we've probably got Matt Wallner in right field. We're looking at Buck in center. Larnach playing left field and maybe some DH. We've got Austin Martin that'll probably slot in the corner, probably left field. And then we've got James Outman right now over Alan Roden as that final outfield spot. You guys have any Thoughts on Outman?
Yeah, so before we jump into what we think the predicted lineup is going to look like, the two spots that we really debated over were the backup shortstop and then Outman versus Roden as the final outfielder. Let's start off with Kreidler. You guys are both fans of Tristan Gray, who the Twins acquired from the Rays over the offseason. What makes you like Gray?
He has some really appealing batted ball metrics in his really small sample. He's done in multiple seasons, including last year. He's hit the ball hard and really hard in spring training. I think he had a double at like 113 or 111. He's, you're kind of shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic with the backup guys, but just believing in that batted ball metrics, it kind of looks like Cody Clemens' Savant last year. Kind of the similar left-handed, hard-hitting guy. And he can play short. I think he had one or two OAA at short last year.
Yeah, that's a fair argument. It is worth noting that both Kreidler and Gray do have options remaining, so they can both be sent down. And then the other argument was over Outman versus Roden. Falvey's Mattress, what makes you think they'll take Outman over Roden?
I think that Outman has a better chance to stick and play in center field when we need to get Buck some rest days. I think both have been having pretty good springs. I'd probably give the nod to Roden at this point. I mean, he's been tearing the cover off the ball. He's been on base every other at bat, it seems like. But I think Outman's ability to play center field and play a mediocre to average center field will carry him to the roster when we head to Baltimore.
Outman is also out of options, and Alan Roden has an option. And so if they're at all comparable, they're not going to want to just lose Outman to waivers because he would get claimed. And speaking of center field, that'll get us to the actual lineup that we predict. Leading off, of course, playing center field, the two-time All-Star, the 2017 Platinum Glove winner, the 2012-2012 draft first-round pick, second overall pick. I don't know why that tripped me up so much, but it did. Byron Buxton leading off center field.
And then coming in the 2 spot and playing second base is Luke Keeschel, who has been on a lot of boards this year to have a breakout season. So he had a really good start last year before he broke his hand on that Kyle Hendricks 84-mile-an-hour fastball. But hoping for big things this summer from Luke.
Yeah, so let's take a moment to talk about these two guys. Buxton, I think we're both in agreement. If he's healthy, he's going to be really good. Any pushback from either of you?
No, sir. I think most Twins fans feel pretty good about this one too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great 1-2 punch at the top here. Two guys that can hit the ball all over the field and run the bases pretty well. So I don't think you can go wrong here.
I do think there is an argument for potentially saying that you should flip these two in the order. If you were Derek Shelton, would you hit Buxton 1 just because of that threat of the long ball?
I kind of agree because Keeschel will have an OBP if he's good, of 370 or 380, and Buxton's will be even if he's good, it'll be 350, and Buxton will hit for more power. So I think there's a pretty strong argument you want Keeschel to get on base more and then Buxton to drive him in. But again, that threat of the first pitch home run, which Buxton's done so many times, I think that does something mentally. It kind of fires the lineup up. So I think Buxton will lead off.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's why we predicted it to be this way. Every game that Buxton started in spring training, he has been in the leadoff spot. It seems almost a guarantee that he is going to hit there. And then following up Luke Keeschel, in the 3-hole, we have Matt Wallner playing right field. Matt Wallner's kind of on his last leg here. I think he has to put together a pretty good 2026 or he's going to get pushed out for an Emmanuel Rodriguez or Walker Jenkins. Falvey's Mattress, what do you expect out of Wallner? Is he going to show that he's up to the task, or is he just going to kind of flame out here?
I tell you what, we are going to need him to show he's up to the task if we want to have any chance of having a decent roster this year. His 2025 season was left a bit to be desired. I don't think it was all lost, but he didn't perform like we kind of hoped he would take that next step up. So, yeah, we're going to need him to pop, try to hit around an 850 OPS and hit the ball all over the field for this lineup to do much damage at all.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. He, despite being bad last year, he did have like a 770 OPS, which is right around league average. It might even be above league average. So even in a bad year for him, it's still one of the better hitters in the lineup, and that's why we have him in the 3-hole. Twins Insider, who do we have hitting cleanup?
We have Royce Lewis, and I think a lot of Twins fans loved this guy a few years ago. I think a lot of Twins fans now roll their eyes kind of at him. He's seemingly been a little bit more mature, a little bit more up to that leadership. He's had a good spring. He had a home run today. I think this is going to go well. He's also kind of on his last legs. If this doesn't click, I don't know what's going to happen to him, but I have confidence in him this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a pretty good Royce here. We better get a good Royce here, like you said. Otherwise, he's probably going to be wearing another team's uniform in 2027, if there is a 2027 season. In the 5-hole, we have Josh Bell, but we have him at DH, and you'll see why in a little bit as we get down the order. The Twins signed him to a $7 million contract this offseason. He's an above average hitter. He hits for power. He hits from both sides of the plate, although he's much better as a left-handed hitter. He's a prototypical fifth hitter. Falvey's Mattress, what are your expectations for Josh Bell?
Yeah, and I will say I've been pretty active in the group chat, not being happy with the Josh Bell signing. I know it's only $7 million, but all offseason I was hoping for Rhys Hoskins. That said, I'm looking at Josh Bell's Savant page right now from last year, and there's quite a bit of red. And we're going to need some thump in the lineup, and I think it is very nice to have a switch hitting option in the lineup with not a lot of switch hitters in it. So I think he can have a pretty good year here. I mean, he hits the ball hard, and he has a pretty solid OPS last year. I think he was at 742, so a little below league average, but I think somebody that could add some thump to our lineup this year.
Well, I agree about the thump, and first of all, I think Josh Bell is kind of underrated and properly rated. He's just a very consistent, like slightly above league average hitter. He'll hit like 20, 25 homers. But he's been doing this, I think he's done it like 7 years in a row. But he's also, in the second half last year, he talked about it in a couple articles. He made a mechanical change to his swing, and he found a couple extra miles per hour of bat speed. And in the second half, he just tore the cover off the ball. Whatever way you look at it, traditional stats, WRC plus, OPS plus, batted ball metrics, he was on fire in the second half. And if you go to his Savant, his rolling ex-WOBA and his final 100 at-bats of the year is like over 400. I mean, if that form of him is what we're going to get all year, he could seriously hit 30 home runs and have an 800 OPS, which this team needs someone to do a lot of damage at the plate. And he's probably the best bet, even though he's not exactly a sure thing.
Yeah, I think for me, Josh Bell and Matt Wallner are the two X factors to this lineup. Like you said, Bell was really, really good in the second half of last year. He's had a pretty good spring so far. Wallner less so, but if they can get, let's say, a combined 60, 65 homers out of those guys, this lineup's going to be certainly above average because you know what you're going to get from Buxton. You think you know what you're going to get from Keishel. If those two guys perform, that's just going to lengthen the lineup a lot.
And then in the sixth spot in our lineup, following up Josh Bell, we've got our starting catcher, Ryan Jeffers, who has grown. Not a lot of the fan base loves Ryan Jeffers at this point in his career, but I think, like the guys we've been mentioning, I think he's got some good bat-to-ball skills. I think he can hit the ball pretty hard, and maybe this is the year where he finally really figures out that offense and he quits with the weak pop-up to second base followed by a bat slam into the dirt, leaving the batter's box. What do you guys think?
It's a contract year, so he better hit or else he's – I actually think the contract year thing might be the X factor for him. Just guys oftentimes do hit really well in contract years, and he's a catcher. If he has a decent year as a catcher, as a hitting catcher, he's looking at like $20 million. So I kind of expect him to hit pretty well just because of that alone.
Yeah, I can't really understand the Jeffers. Hey, is he a star catcher? No, but he's certainly an above average catcher over the last 3 years. He has OPS plus is 133 in that breakout 2023, Last year 103, 103 OPS plus, and then last year 108. So he is an above average league hitter over the last 3 seasons. The defense isn't going to blow you away, but it certainly isn't. He's not a butcher back there. So I'm a fan of Ryan Jeffers. I think that he's going to provide some big moments for this team. Following up Jeffers in the 7 hole, we have Trevor Larnach, unfortunately playing left field. I'm already scared of him playing left field at Camden Yards.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Larnach has never been a great fielding outfielder, and Camden Yards is monstrous in left field. So I'm not too excited for that to see that opening day. But it's Trevor Larnach. I mean, he's still on our roster somehow when everybody and their sister thought that he would be traded eventually. But here we are with him in the 7 hole. I don't have much other than that on him.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to talk about with Larnach. Hitting in the bottom third of the order is fine, and if he's going to provide just slightly below average defense, he's not a bad player, but I think the ceiling at this point we're all pretty out on. Insider, do you think there's any hope at a late 20s breakout for Trevor Larnach?
Not really. I mean, his best year in 2024, he was an above average hitter who was mostly a DH or a really bad outfielder, which is like he was like one WAR. I think it's interesting because people keep trying to trade him, and they tried to trade him at the deadline. They tried to trade him instead. They wanted to tender him a contract because they've been trying to trade him all offseason, and just the fact that nobody has traded for him kind of tells you not really a lot there. But I mean, he's going to either be in the opening day lineup or he's going to be in the opening day lineup for a different team.
Yeah, and we've beat the Trevor Larnach thing to death, so we don't need to get back into it. But we've seen the Twins do this with a left-handed outfielder over the last 4 or 5 years. First, it was Kepler, who they thought would get traded every offseason, and then lately it's been Larnach. Both of them always sticked around, and it seems like that's going to be the case for Larnach. Then hitting in the 8th hole, we do finally get to the first baseman. We have that as Cody Clemens. Falvey's Mattress, what makes us think that Clemens is the first baseman over Josh Bell?
His metrics are just a lot better defensively at first base. You can argue that you don't know if Falvey at the time would have signed a $7 million DH without cap constraints, but Clemens does just grade out a lot better. And, you know, he had a pretty good year last year when he came in with us. I don't think many had too high of expectations for him, but the advanced metrics actually matched his stats, and he was exciting to watch. So I think that's why he's getting the nod at first base for me personally.
Yeah, I think Clemens, I'm a fan of him. He provided some big hits last year, and his defense grades out well at multiple positions. So he's a worthwhile piece to have at the bottom of the order. It is worth noting that we think first baseman is kind of going to be a revolving door between Josh Bell, Cody Clemens, and Victor Caratini. I think Bell will probably lead the team in starts there by the end of the year, assuming he stays on the roster and isn't traded somewhere at the deadline. But I also think Caratini and Clemens are both going to start, let's just say, at least 30 games there. Clemens probably more. Insider, any thoughts on Cody Clemens?
I personally am a little worried. He actually, like Mattress said, he had good metrics last year. I'm just worried because anytime a guy in his late 20s has one good year after a lot of just kind of nothing years or bad years, I am a little worried that it was just kind of that random pop-up year that a lot of players have. But if he plays like he did last year, that is a solid player who makes no money, could possibly be traded if he has another year like that. He's a perfectly fine guy to hit in the bottom of the order. Some clutch hits, some power.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of Clemens, and we'll see him pinch hit plenty off the bench when he's not in the starting lineup. Rounding out the order, the shortstop, Brooks Lee. Again, like we talked about with Wallner, like we talked about with Royce, this is a prove-it year for Brooks, I think. Not necessarily that he's going to be out of the organization if he doesn't perform like I think Wallner or Royce will be if they have a bad 2026, but you have Casey Culpepper behind him. You have Merrick Houston, who's probably a year and a half to 2 years away and certainly is a better shortstop. So I think he doesn't need to perform both on defense and offense, but he can't afford to be bad at both.
Which, to be I know a lot of fans enjoy watching Lee because he had like the hit streak last year. I think he had like a 15 or 16 game hit streak. He's kind of at times, and early in his career, he kind of looked the part, but he has been by every way you slice it, a terrible hitter and a terrible fielder to this point.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Lee certainly hasn't been a good hitter. I actually think the defense at shortstop, and this is simply going by the eye test, I know the numbers say that he wasn't a great shortstop. It seems like to me that shortstop was actually his best position compared to second or third, like we saw him play last year, which does make some sense. He grew up playing there for his dad as a coach. He is limited quite a bit athletically, so it would be somewhat surprising if he does show enough to stay there. But if he can hit, which I think it is worth noting that he had 16 home runs last year, which again, that's not a ton, but if I had to guess, I would have guessed he maybe had 11 or 12 homers. If he can get to the 20, maybe even 25 homer mark, if everything goes well, he'll have a spot on this team. Flavi's Mattress, any parting thoughts on Brooks Lee?
If we can get Brooks Lee up to 25 home runs as our 9-hitter, we might surprise some teams this year. That's my only thought on him. But let's get to the bench now. So we've got Victor Caratini, who will play predominantly backup catcher, and we've mentioned maybe sprinkle in some first base. We got Ryan Kreidler, who can play backup shortstop and get into center field or outfield in a pinch. We've got Austin Martin, who slots in both corners, but mainly left field. And then the aforementioned James Outman over Alan Roden.
Yeah, so Caratini I don't think is worth talking about a ton. We know what he's going to be, a league average bat with slightly below average defense at catcher, and I don't really get the point of playing him at first base, although it seems like he is going to play there a few times throughout the year. And Kreidler, like we talked about earlier, is a glove first guy. He's going to play shortstop and maybe some corner outfield. I do want to talk a little bit about Austin Martin. He had a really good second half for the Twins last year. After kind of being written off, he's battled some injuries. Do you think what we saw out of Austin Martin last year is his ceiling, or is there more to tap in there?
I think I would definitely take that version of him anytime. The ceiling has always been if he actually ever gets power, but it's pretty clear at this point he's not going to get power. And last year he played like a 3-WAR player if you pace it out over a season, which high OBP, high average, steal some bases, was actually a serviceable left fielder. So ceiling probably because he's not that young anymore, but I want to believe in him. We've all been big fans of him going back years. And I'm really hoping that the version we saw last August and September is the version we're going to get, not the version we've gotten in spring training, which has been pretty poor.
Yeah, and then you mentioned James Outman rounding out the roster here. To the chagrin of a few guys on Twitter that they will not be happy to see him on the roster. But like we've mentioned with him, he does not have another option. We traded Brock Stewart for him last year, so we really don't want to let him go for free because he would be picked up. He can play a badish center field. He can hit the ball every now and again. He had a pretty good 2023 season. He's been bad since then, but maybe we can find some glimpses of that 2023 season with James Outman as our 4th or 5th outfield option.
He has 6 steals in spring. He's kind of a base running demon, which if he wants to be a bench player, that's important. Are you guys buying the new reformed James Outman, who's kind of been tearing it up in spring training?
Kind of actually am a little bit. At least the defense and the power, or not the defense, sorry, the base running and the power. We know that when he connects with the ball, he hits it hard, he hits it a long ways. So the question is, can he make enough contact? That remains to be seen. But the speed is there. And like Insider mentioned, that's valuable off the bench. And that's part of the reason that we took him on this roster over Roden, who I think we would all rather see and we will see plenty of in 2026. But Outman, the one question I have, he came in with the reputation that his defense was pretty good in center field. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen that yet.
He had last year, I looked it up, he had 0 fielding run value and 0 defensive runs saved and 0 outs above average. He's literally an average fielder.
Which in center field, especially as your backup, you can do a lot worse than that. So if he's going to put up a, let's say, 770 OPS, you're definitely going to sign up for that every day.
Did you say 7.0.770? If he does that and Brooks Lee hits 25 home runs, I'll see you guys at the parade.
I already bought the World Series tickets, so I'll be there with you. But that's our thoughts on the lineup, what we think it'll look like on opening day in Baltimore in a few weeks. After this break, we'll take a look at the team defense. And welcome back to Twins Takes. I'm Twin Central, still joined by Falvey's Mattress and Twins Insider. So we just took a look at the lineup. Now we want to take a look at the defensive alignment. And I don't think any of us are real high on this team defensively. First off, we'll start with the guys that we know are going to provide value. Buxton obviously is at the top of the list. He was a Platinum Glover just a few years ago. He didn't struggle, but he certainly took a little bit of a step back, but he's still going to be the best defender on this team. Then we have Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis really took a step up last season. His throwing in 2024 was bad, but that was fixed in 25. And then, Insider, why don't you take us through the rest of the guys that we feel good about defensively?
Yeah, absolutely. Cody Clemens, we like. We really like him at first. Second, he can play pretty well there. We also really do like Kreidler, and that's why he's going to make the team, because we do like him short. He's probably the best defensive shortstop on the team, or at least on the 40. And he can play center field in a pinch. And if Rodin was here, we would like him, but he's not here. So I think that's all the fielders we really like.
And that's not necessarily good news, because Clemens is at best going to play on a part-time basis. Kreidler isn't really going to play at all, other than maybe late in innings or against left-handed pitchers. So that's Buxton and Lewis. And I'm not even convinced that Lewis is totally fixed, but we just have to go with the assumption that he is, I guess, until he shows that he is. And Falvey's Mattress, any thoughts on those four guys?
I'm more bearish on Royce Lewis's defense. I know he performed pretty well last year, but it seems like every season we get a different version of Royce Lewis. So until he proves it in the regular season, I'm not huge on him defending at third base, but if he can look like last year, I know he looked pretty solid. Then we're going to get into some of the solid defenders. They're not great. They're just kind of doing their job. We mentioned James Outman in center field, but what Outman brings is the ability to play all three spots in the outfield, which will help this team, as we don't really have much options in center field other than that. We've got Ryan Jeffers in the solid fielding category. He has his framing issues, but he throws out runners at a pretty decent mark, and ABS should help him a lot. Should be mentioned that Twins were leading the league in challenge success rate about a week ago in spring training, so maybe we know something other teams don't there. Who knows? Then we've got Victor Caratini for his 10 to 20 starts at first base. He should field pretty well there. Insider, you got any thoughts on the rest of the fielders?
Well, I just want to mention quickly that I agree that the ABS, because we haven't talked about Caratini yet, we'll get to him, but he's also not a great framer, and the Twins have really struggled with framing in recent years. So the ABS is probably legitimately worth many runs for this team. And we can get into now some of the bad fielders, but bad fielders with upside. So that is Luke Keeschel. He's not a great second baseman, or at least he wasn't last year, but the arm should be back now. He is incredibly athletic. I mean, he runs and moves. He looks like he should be a good second baseman, and he looks like he could be a good left fielder if he goes there. Brooks Lee is another one. Actually, I'll go Austin Martin first. He's the exact same thing in left field. He runs. He looks like an athlete. He's a base stealer. He's fast. He improved on his defense last year. You hope that he takes another step. And then finally, we have Brooks Lee, who does not look like an athlete. He's a little bit stockier, but he did lose some weight this offseason, and he did a lot of work on his lateral movement, which is, of course, a lot of shortstop. But with those guys especially, second base and shortstop, if they can hit and they can be average fielders, you'll definitely take that.
Yeah, so I think the two young guys up the middle, both Keeschel and Lee, I think it's likely in 2027 when we're doing the same podcast that we're talking about both of them at different positions. I think Lee will probably slide over to second base at this time next year if he's still around, and I think that Keeschel will be viewed as more of an outfielder than a second baseman a year from now. His range at second base just didn't seem good enough. Part of that could have been the time that he missed due to injuries. but it just seems like Insider mentioned his athleticism works better in the outfield than it does at the infield. And then Austin Martin, we talked about it a few podcasts ago. He seems like he should be a good defender. He just struggles getting good reads sometimes. But I do have faith in all three of these guys that there is more there if they can tap into it.
Then I'll take you through who we expect to be pretty bad fielders. We've got Josh Bell for the time he plays at first base. We had mentioned Cody Clemens hopefully getting the nod there above Josh Bell. So we'll see how many starts he gets there. And then we've got our two corner outfield spots that we had mentioned, Trevor Larnach and Matt Wallner. So hopefully Byron Buxton can get a little bit of that 26-year-old Byron Buxton speed back, because he's going to have to cover a lot of ground if those are his corner compadres. And then we've got Victor Caratini at catcher. Is just he doesn't grade out too well. Like we mentioned, he should be helped out a little bit by ABS. A lot of his issues are with framing. But, I mean, overall, I think we all expect this to be a pretty poor fielding baseball team, and that was a big issue for us last season, and I don't think we really made many offseason moves to shore that up at all. You guys think so?
Yeah, I echo your thoughts. I don't think this team defensively is going to be very good. And when you hear us break this down, there are, guys that we think have upside or are already pretty good players defensively. The issue is those are the guys that are on the bench, like Kreidler, like Outman. Those aren't guys that are going to be in there every day. Meanwhile, you have Larnach and Wallner, who, if they're on the roster, they're going to be playing, and they're going to be playing in the field. Caratini is going to see plenty of time at catcher. Josh Bell is going to see plenty of time at first base. And I do think it's worth talking a little bit that Josh Bell is a really, really bad defender at first base. And the Twins have been lucky over the last few years. They've taken some of these reclamation projects and turned them into good fielders, but that was obviously under a different coaching staff. Josh Bell is on the wrong side of 30. I don't have much faith that's going to happen with him. Do you, Insider?
No, I think he really is more or less, or he should be a full-time DH. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this goes back to the roster construction. If Josh Bell plays DH and Clemens plays first, this team is so much better. But that requires Larnach to play left or Larnach to be traded. So, again, we'll keep having these conversations. As the year goes on, injuries will happen. Guys will get traded. Josh Bell will probably get traded, so we won't have to worry about him anymore. But with all that being said, I think that was a pretty good episode. I think we covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot more ground than some of the Twins outfielders will be able to. And we've about reached that time, so we want to thank everybody for listening and following along. We really appreciate those of you who have stuck with us through a few episodes here. Spring training is kind of a grind, not just for the players, but for the podcasters too. And we're almost to opening day, and even though this team might not be great, it's always fun to talk baseball and to watch baseball. And we're really looking forward to that. We have next week, Central and Mattress are not going to be here, but Troy will be back, and we have a good episode planned. We have a fun guest or two planned. We're going to talk about pitching, especially the rotation. We should have a Joe Ryan start to talk about. We should have some WBC games to talk about. So it's about to get crazy as the season kicks off. And we want to thank you guys all for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next week.